سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد صلاة تخرجنا بها من أوحال الوهم وتوضحنا ما أشكل حتى يفهم إنك تعلم ولا نعلم وأنت علام الغيوب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So we come to the hadith. This hadith is we're still in the bab al-niyya, the chapter of intention. وعن أبي بكرة نفيع بن الحارث بن الثقفي رضي الله عنه. This hadith is related from Abu Bakr Nufay' ibn Harith al-Thaqafi. So because he's Thaqafi, that means he's from the tribe of Thaqif. And we know Thaqif, like we say Medina and Medini, you actually shorten it. So we've got Thaqif, and actually shorten this nisbah, which is interesting for these for your Arabicists. For everyone else, is not Thaqafi. It shortens, it takes out the ya of the nisbah, which is unique. So he was from Thaqif, which obviously Thaqif were from what region of the Arab Peninsula? Anyone? They're from Ta'if. And Ta'if were the most problematic people, probably, that the Prophet ﷺ had to deal with. They were very, very difficult people. Even when they're accepting Islam, and they even killed their own chieftain over Islam. So they were a real struggle for him. But he's Thaqafi. Now this Abu Bakr, people don't really know much about him. I mean, I've never heard of him really until I looked up on his bio. He was, when the Prophet ﷺ went to Ta'if, they surrounded, they sieged that's the correct term to use, they sieged the city, and they had a real difficult time because Ta'if was in a highland, and it was very well protected. And so it was very, very hard. They didn't have the apparatus, they didn't have the means to penetrate the city. So eventually the Prophet ﷺ left. But he did give, he said, if anyone comes down now and surrenders from a free man, they're safe. And if anyone surrenders to us and comes to us now who's a slave, he's a free man. And so a number of slaves that actually escaped the ramparts, if that's the right word to use, of the city. And one of them was Abu Bakr. Why was he called Abu Bakr? Because Bakra is a pulley in Arabic. You know, on a well, you've got the pulley. Basically, he escaped the city by I assume he got in a bucket or something, some sort of thing, and he pulled down and he escaped. So then the Prophet ﷺ named him Abu Bakr. Bakra is a pulley, so he's the pulley basically. The guy was in the pulley. And so he escaped to him. Later, the Thaqif tribe actually came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, we want him back, he's one of our slaves. And he says, Huwa taliqullah wa huwa taliqu rasulillah. He says, he is the freed one of Allah and the freed one of the Messenger of Allah, so we don't give him back. And so he had a very close relationship with the Prophet ﷺ from then. And what's really interesting, when we look at these hadith, I think this is one of the greatest skills in hadith, and I think the Musnad of Imam Ahmad that I'm aware of helps in this the most, because the Musnad organises the hadith according to the Sahabi. So when you're reading through this hadith, you're realising that these hadith, we get this idea, and a very superficial idea of the Prophet ﷺ when it comes to hadith, is that he was just sitting there, and all of a sudden he went, this epiphany came to him, and he just quoted this hadith completely out of context, and you just go, and then that's it. But we realise that most statements people make are in a context. Most statements are due to circumstances and a situation and people around. And so Allah knows best with this one. But the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr was very much influenced by this hadith. Now I'm going to quote the hadith and go through it, and then we'll come back to Abu Bakr after that. It says, he relates, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إذا التقت المسلمان بسيفيهما, which is very interesting grammatically, فالقاتل والمقتول في النار. Okay, if two Muslims, okay, meet one another with their swords, they confront one another with their swords, فالقاتل والمقتول في النار, then the one that kills, and then the one that is killed, they are both in the fire of hell. And so he left it at that. Then Abu Bakr, which is really interesting for the Sahaba, were very what's the word? Like an adjective of inquiry. Inquisitive. There you go. They were very inquisitive. He said, well, hang on a minute, that doesn't seem right. How is it? Okay, I can understand the guy killed him. He's in hell. How come the guy who gets killed is in hellfire as well? I don't understand that. How's that possible? And so the Prophet ﷺ, he raised this with the Prophet ﷺ. قُلْتُ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, O Messenger of Allah, هَذَا الْقَاتِلُ فَمَا بَالُ الْمَقْتُولِ. He says, okay, this is the one that's killed, he killed the person, he's in hell, I can understand that. He says, فَمَا بَالُ الْمَقْتُولِ. He says, what with the one that, was killed? قَالَ إِنَّهُ كَانَ حَرِيصًا عَلَى قَتْلِ صَاحِبِهِ. Verily, he was avid to kill him. So if he had the chance, he would have done the same thing. So what we take from this, first of all, there must have been a situation with it here. And that has an even more profound effect. When the Sahaba are witnessing an event, the Prophet ﷺ gives his commentary on that event as a reflection for people, and then later on that has a huge impact on the person. And this definitely did with Abu Bakr. Why? Because of this hadith, Abu Bakr never took part in the fitan, the trials, the tribulations that happened between Sayyidina Muawiyah radiallahu anhu and Sayyidina Ali karramallahu wajhah. He didn't get involved in them whatsoever. Even though obviously people felt that, why don't you join with Sayyidina Ali? He's on the right. We've got to stand up for justice. How can anyone be wrong? Sayyidina Ali's doing it. He wished to take the precautionary part of the position here. He didn't want to get involved whatsoever with it, and so he wouldn't take any part. He didn't become partisan to any party. And so we see that the Sahaba, they would take few words of the Prophet ﷺ, and it would have a profound. It would be basically they would implement that for the rest of their life. Okay, they would take their interpretation, how they felt towards that, and then they would carry that out according to that. Obviously with knowledge, not just anyone just interpreting without true understanding of the context. He says here, now why is this in the chapter of intention? Because the reality is that we obviously say if the idea of a good deed comes to you, and then you ponder over it and you become adamant to do it, but you don't carry it out. You're unable to carry it out. That's what's important here. We're unable to carry it out. You get the reward of it. So I intended to go on Hajj this year. The visa tickets went up, so the visa was so expensive. I couldn't afford it now, and I could initially. It's written for you as if it's a Hajj, and it may be even more sincere Hajj than even if you were to go, because you were adamant to do it, but you couldn't. The circumstance completely prevented you. Not that you have all these ideas. I'll do this this year, but you don't even have any adamant. You're not even adamant to do them. That doesn't mean that. Likewise, vice versa with sins. So a sin comes to you, but you're prevented from acting it out. But if you had the opportunity, you would still do it. That's counted as a sin. You say, well, I didn't carry it out. Yeah, but you are adamant to do it. It doesn't matter. And so that's important that people understand that, because a lot of people think as long as I don't act it out, there's no sin. But there is a sin if you're adamant to do something. And so from this hadith, we take that this person, even though he was killed, if he were in the same circumstance as the person, he would have killed the other person as well. And so we take that the person be very, very cautious about when, day to day they're thinking, I don't know when my time's coming, and so I have to be cautious what I'm involved in, because this could be the last thing that I'm involved in. And so when some sin comes to one, he tries to combat it as much as he possibly can with whichever means or devices he has available to him. And so what we also take from this hadith is the sanctity of life. Is that the worst thing you can ever do is take someone's life. And the Sahaba, they were so serious about this issue that they didn't take it lightly whatsoever. Obviously, we see the Muslims today. It's like as if the Prophet ﷺ prophesied this. He said at the end of time there will come a time where someone doesn't even know why he's killing the other person. Why? Because when you're emotionally involved in something, you just get caught in that literal trauma vortex. Of the community, and you start committing all sorts of atrocities, and you're not even aware you're doing it because you're caught up in the communal trauma of the thing. And so people have to be very cautious. And so that's why those Sahaba that were able to even pull out of the fitan and not get involved, that's a very, very high station to be not able to get involved in that. It was a very traumatic time, and people have to understand that you take things out of historical context. It's very easy to be a judge. But when you're in the thick of it, it's very, very difficult for people sometimes to make the right decisions in those regardless. But we know that both parties had their sincere intentions of whatever it was. And so this is what we take. So as we say, Abu Bakr, if we come back to Abu Bakr, we see that he took the Sahaba, they took these hadith incredibly seriously, and they applied them in their life. And this is what Abu Bakr took from this hadith. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. نستغفرك ونتوب إليك عملنا ثم ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكن من الخاسرين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب